Hello and welcome to this new episode of ADDEV Materials, Bold Entrepreneurship. As an international company, we often ask ourselves the question, what does it mean to work in a French company as a foreigner? To answer this question, we welcome Aleksandra BOSIAK, General Manager, Mobility Industries and Healthcare Poland, and Tom YOCKEY, Vice President, Mobility Industries and Healthcare North America, who will share their experience with us. Aleksandra and Tom, hello.
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 Well, first of all, do you know each other? Have you met before this podcast?
So yes, actually, Aleksandra and I got the chance to meet when we were at the Leadership Summit back in August in Lyon.
Aleksandra, can you tell us more about your personal background, your studies, and the beginning of your career before ADDEV Materials?
Yes, of course. With pleasure. Aleksandra BOSIAK. I'm 42 years old. I'm an engineer in management and production engineering. I graduated Technical University, but I also completed postgraduate studies in building customer value. After my studies, I worked in a company from the printing sector where I spent almost 10 years. It was a truly enriching experience because I gradually evolved from junior customer service specialist to sales director. Also, I have to say that my international experience began there as I was responsible for foreign clients. In 2013, the next point in my career started when I joined an international group from the plastic packaging industry. And finally, in the middle of 2018, I became a part of the ADDEV Materials group. So professionally, I've been working in the market for almost 20 years and for ADDEV Materials for more than 4 years now.
So now we change sides of the world and we find Tom, who is based in the USA. As Aleksandra, can you tell us more about your background and the beginning of your career before ADDEV Materials?
Absolutely. So my name's Tom YOCKEY. I started with a degree in industrial engineering from the University of Pittsburgh, which is really where I grew up and where I live now. I worked as an industrial engineer for a company called Mine Safety Appliances, which is a fairly large international Pittsburgh-based company. From there, I became a project manager. And then I moved on to another company, Ames Rubber, and became a production manager, and then an operations manager at a ceramic factory back here in Pittsburgh. And now I'm working for ADDEV. It's coming up on 3 years here in March.
Well, this is great because we're going to have 2 points of views from different regions and different cultures as well. Aleksandra, what led you to ADDEV Materials? How did you join the company?
For me, it was a natural step in my career. I wanted to grow in the international environment, and when I was contacted by ADDEV Materials, I immediately said yes. I was impressed by the fact that ADDEV Materials Group was expanding so quickly, so dynamically, so that the plans for business development in Poland were very ambitious, and I think I liked this developmental perspective the most. I really bought into their plans to build a brand new modern factory here in Poland, increase market share in the key industrial sectors, which would in turn make a positive change in ADDEV Materials customers' life. So I decided to be a part of that.
And you've recently been appointed General Manager of ADDEV Materials Poland. Is it a personal accomplishment as a woman in this rather masculine industrial environment?
Well, that's actually a very good question. And yes, I've recently been promoted and I'm quite excited about that. I feel that, it has been a direct result of all the hard work that I've put into advancing my career. But regarding that last bit about a predominantly masculine industrial environment, it is true that lately there's been a lot of discussion worldwide about gender diversity deficits, especially in the business management. And you're right that there are still too few women in this business setting, but I actually believe that the gender gap is and will be narrowing, and I think that my promotion is an example which shows that the situation is changing. But it's also very important for me to mention that at ADDEV Material Group, we do a lot to create an inclusive environment and workplace open for everyone. For example, we have an inclusion program called Add Power with H in the end. So there is a her at the end, which is an obvious reference to females. This program empowers women by strengthening their professional positions within our company and encourage women to lean in, as in the title of book by Sheryl Sandberg.
Tom, I imagine that in the USA there are lots of American companies and maybe only a few French companies. Did you want to work with a foreign company, or was this a complete coincidence?
It wasn't necessarily a goal of mine to work for a foreign company, but I was definitely intrigued by the opportunity to work for a French-owned company, as I have not really worked for a company that was based outside of the United States.
Aleksandra, are there a lot of French companies in Poland? Why did you choose a French company?
Yes, there are quite a few French companies in my country, and yes, their presence is visible. I think that's mainly because of the fact that Poland is one of the most attractive countries among the European emerging markets. And thanks to that, it's a perfect option for international investors. And to address your second question, I have to say that at that time, when I was hired, I wasn't really focused on the fact that it was a French company. So the company's country of origin had very little to do with my decision at that time. I was more concentrated on ADDEV Materials values and the company itself rather than anything else. However, in hindsight, I have to say that the famous French national motto, liberty, equality, and fraternity, accurately reflect the values of ADDEV Materials. Liberty, because everyone is free to express their own opinions. Equality, because everyone matters. And fraternity, because there is a team spirit and mutual support for one another.
And do you speak French? Or have you ever been to France?
So, do I speak French? Well, yes and no. Yes, because I'm currently at B1.2 level in French. And no, because I'm not completely fluent yet. And because of this, I'm not able to communicate freely in the business environment. But to be honest, before I joined ADDEV Materials, I didn't know French at all. I could only say and understand bonjour and merci. But obviously, I find the French language beautiful. The language is, deeply connected to my preference in poetry, cinema, and it also sounds quite romantic, in my opinion. But in our organization, you don't really need to speak French because our corporate language is English.
And for you, Tom?
So I guess the short answer is yes. I'm learning French. I've started since I took this position about 3 years ago. I took 3 years of French in high school, a long time ago, and I retained very little of it. So if you don't use it, you definitely lose it. But I've been taking some courses and my French is improving, but yeah, definitely not at the level where I can speak fluently with another French speaker. I did get the chance to visit France for my first time in August of this past year. My wife and son were able to join me for a week in Paris, and then I spent a week in Lyon for our business meeting. So it was a really great opportunity.
And now, what is it like to work abroad for a French company? What do your friends or family think about it?
I get a lot of questions mostly about the culture and the differences between the French culture and the American culture. But yes, I'd say my family and friends are all pretty well intrigued by the fact that I'm working for an international company, specifically a French company. I don't have very many friends or family who do that.
And Aleksandra, how are the interactions with French teams? Do you have a lot of contacts?
Yes, I do. I have a lot of contact with my French colleagues, and it is always positive and professional. We have departments in the organization that provide services to all ADDEV Materials factories worldwide, such as marketing, IT, HR, etc. And the people from those departments, they're mainly based in France. So we have contact on a daily basis. And my direct boss, she's French too.
Are there any advantages to working for a French company?
Of course, there are many advantages, and some of them were already mentioned. So firstly, working in the international environment, cooperation with people from abroad, learn about other cultures and different approaches. Then secondly, a high awareness of French companies to build inclusive organization in which diverse teams function. And I'm referring to age and gender diversity here. So a nice mix of young and older generations, as well as men and women having the same access to all the positions. So essentially, French companies are equal opportunity employers. And lastly, which I haven't mentioned yet, by the way, a strong awareness and execution of ecological and environmental protection policies, and generally corporate social responsibility. For French companies, I think adhering to the environmental policy is an inseparable element of the company's DNA.
And Tom, do you see any differences in the daily work life or different cultures in the business between France and the USA?
Yeah, there's a few. So, as far as daily work life is concerned, the biggest difference for me is the time difference. So France is 6 hours ahead of us, but I'm always amazed at the availability of the French people in the evening. When it's mid-afternoon here, it's night in France. And there's been many emails that have gone back and forth and many conversations that have happened in that time frame, which I really didn't expect when I first started. I thought all of the business that I had with the French local folks would be in the morning, and I found their availability to be actually pleasantly surprising. On the difference in cultures, so the one thing I noticed pretty quickly when I started with the company that I find entertaining is that the French love to negotiate. It's almost like a favorite pastime or a hobby. So whenever there's discussions with vendors and suppliers, there's a lot more negotiation that seems to happen with price and terms and conditions than I am used to dealing with American companies for sure.
And what would be the advantages and disadvantages of working for a French company?
The big advantage for me is just opening my eyes to new cultures, getting the opportunity to work with a company who's in multiple countries, multiple regions, and getting to see the differences between those areas, how they function, and how people work. It's been fascinating for me. The only real disadvantage is there is a little bit of a language barrier at times, and it's usually in the nuances. As Aleksandra said earlier, the folks in France all speak English quite well, much better than I speak French. But sometimes there's a word or two that's a bit different, which creates a misinterpretation of the discussion. I guess the other thing is that there's less oversight, for my position, which sometimes is a pro and sometimes is a con. It just depends on the day.
Aleksandra, which of the ADDEV values do you consider to be the most important?
For me, these are people and innovation. Why people? Well, because team spirit and making employees feel valued will develop their talents, maximize their potential and satisfaction. In my experience, when employees are more engaged and productive, wonderful things happen. And in regards to my second most important value, innovation, I believe it's the engine that drives the company forward and create added value to customers.
Tom, as we look to the future of ADDEV Materials, what are you most excited about?
What I'm most excited about is the growth opportunity we have here at ADDEV. For the last 2+ years, we've been dealing with the pandemic and the after effects of the pandemic. I think we're in a position to start putting that behind us and really grow as an organization. I also am looking forward to the opportunity to try new things. With my background in engineering, I really enjoy getting involved in cutting edge technology and things that are up and coming in the marketplace. And I think we're poised pretty well as a company to start taking on some new initiatives and work with some new materials and be part of that forefront.
Thank you very much for being with us for this new episode of ADDEV Materials Bold Entrepreneurship. Do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel and our social networks to know all our news. We will meet again in 2 weeks with new speakers. Stay tuned.